and I'll forget the thank you for joining us here in the Purple Kurt podcast. I'm your host, Kurt Hoffman. My special guest today is founding member of the Human League, founding member of British Electric Foundation, founding member of 3D Soundscape Illustrious. Among other things, he has produced tracks for Tina Turner's Private Dancer album, the artist formerly known as Terence Trent D'arby, Sananda Maitreya, and a whole host of other projects. And I'd love to welcome him. He's from the Sheffield, UK. He is a proud Wednesday football diehard fan. Wednesday Football Club.
There you go.
As a father of 2 children and a married man. And I'd like to welcome him and thank you for coming and being with me today, Martyn. And first things first, as I didn't do this, originally thought we were recording this and I found I didn't. First thing is I'll ask you like you ask most of your guests, how are you keeping?
How am I keeping?
Yeah.
I was quite unwell for a while, and we tried to do this podcast before, and I was suffering badly with bronchitis. So now I'm better. So I'm all systems go now, all cylinders firing. So thank you for asking, and I'm happy to do it. I've actually in the last week recorded about 8 podcasts with other people, so I'm back in the swing of things now.
Yeah, that's no small feat.
As you know, it takes a certain amount of effort and mental acuity and and kind of empathy.
That's why I'm drinking a caffeinated beverage as we speak.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so yeah, I'm feeling on good form at the moment, and I can feel spring is coming.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah. We're just recently getting back from Puerto Rico myself. I'm ready for it. Though I will say here in the States, at least where I live in Pennsylvania, the winter has been kind of mild. There were some, low temperatures for a day here and a day there, but nothing terribly out of the ordinary. And
been pretty cold in London. I mean,
it's really cold.
The coldest winter we've had in London for probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you got to layer up.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm going to throw a little, since we talked, we're going to go all over the place with your career. And I know you say you don't mind. And I told you last time we tried to do the take one of this, that my ADHD goes everywhere. You're in the Marylebone area in London when you're in
Correct.
London?
Yeah.
How far are you from the Handel Hendricks House Museum? It's on 25 Brook Street, I believe.
Not very far. I mean, okay. It's a very interesting area. I mean, it's got a historical connection with music, actually.
Yeah, I know.
And in fact, about 100 meters from where I'm sat currently is where John and Yoko used to live in London.
Oh, wow.
And it's just, there's a lot of connection with the musical world around here. I mean, there are blue plaques everywhere in London showing historical sites and everything. Keep passing different ones all the time. Yeah, I'm not very far away from Wigmore Hall as well, which you'll probably know about, which is like Britain's preeminent chamber concert hall. And that's in the centre of town, so I'm about less than 10 minutes walk from there as well.
Trying to think what premiered there. Britain probably Turn of the Screw, I would think, was done there. I got to work at Peabody Conservatory in Baltimore with John Shirley Quirk, the British bass baritone. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
No.
He premiered. He was on first name basis with Ben Britton, as he calls him, Ben, and Gerald
Benny.
Finzi and all those.
Benny, I love Benny. Yeah.
Oh, and when Ben and I were working on Death in Venice, and he premiered the role of the fop in that.
Wow.
So, folks, if you think we were just going to talk about Prince and all that stuff, this is a Prince-based podcast, but I do like to broaden my horizons, and you're certainly an excellent guy to talk to about a whole host of subjects. It doesn't matter what.
I love opera, and I know you're an opera singer and all that. So we have some stuff in common. I love classical music generally.
I know you do. In fact, folks, this guy, I mean, your breadth of musical knowledge is wonderful.
And
you frequently have mentioned on your podcast, by the way, behind me is the graphics for it. Electronically Yours, with Martyn Ware. You can stream it on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you want, on everything.
And he has worked with and many of the people that you're on your podcast you've either produced or worked with. Sananda Maitreya, many of us will know him here as Terence Trent D'arby, but he no longer goes by that name. So from now on, if I say Sananda Maitreya, that's Terence Trent D'arby, out of respect for him and his art, and still an amazing artist to this day. Absolutely. But John's Shirley Quirk also, I mentioned, got me into Baroque opera, and I know you're a huge fan. And Henry Purcell, Dido and Aeneas, one of your favorite songs you mentioned frequently is When I'm Laid in Earth.
When I'm Laid in Earth, Dido's Lament. Beautiful. Yeah.
Oh,
my favorite song of all time, actually.
I can't fault you for that. If I had to pick one from the operatic world, being a tenor, of course, Nessun Dorma is up there. But so many people have taken that piece out of context. A piece like When I'm Laid in Earth, kind of hard to put in a car commercial.
I went to see Dido and Aeneas in the Fenice Opera House in Venice. And it was amazing. And it was in the middle of lockdown, in the middle of COVID. Wow. And they just opened the place up to people for the first time in like a year. And I happened to be there, and the whole Venice was empty, basically. And there were very few public events that were going on. Yeah. So the Fenice was the first place to open. And they'd changed the layout in the theater. I don't know if you know the Fenice. Have you ever been
My husband actually did a neuroscience conference in Venezia, many years ago, and got me a tie with the blue and all the colors of the theater with a tie from it. Yeah. So I've not been.
It's one of the most beautiful opera houses in the world. It's like a jewel box. It's so gorgeous. And
how many does it seat, Martyn? About 600, 700, 800, maybe.
Not even that many.
Wow.
I mean, maybe 500.
Oh.
I mean, they do about 250 on the ground floor, and then the boxes. So it's probably another. So, but anyway, they'd reconfigured the entire auditorium. So instead of the proscenium arch stage at one end, they put the audience in armchairs, i.e., me, in armchairs, socially distanced on the stage, and they put the orchestra in the middle of the space because they're furthest away from the people. So they sold the boxes around the outside, and we were sat on the stage. So that's never going to happen again. That was an exciting experience. Anyway, Dido and Aeneas, what an amazing opera! And
that was the production you saw. Wow.
It was semi-staged. There was no scenery.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, good Lord, I can talk about anything from the most banal electronic pop music to to the most avant-garde 12-tone composition.
Of where you speak, but here's the thing, though. And like I said, we can curse on this podcast. Your shit, Martyn, and extremely well. And that's what turned me on about your podcast. And I will have you know personally, I take your podcast with me when I go for my runs. In fact, I'm in my running suit as we speak right now. I'll probably be going for a run not long after we do this podcast. And you're frequently in my ears when I go for my runs 3 times a week.
That's a nice thought.
But the range of the style of your podcast interviewing is more akin to when you had Howard Jones on as one of your guests. Howard Jones, No One Is to Blame. It's a huge hit here in the US. Howard Jones was the one who really got it right when he kind of summed up when you two were talking. He says, I kind of like your format, Martyn. It's like we're having a pub chat.
That's precisely it.
And that's the whole idea. And for people that's, there's always trolls on the internet and social media, as you well know.
Some people go, you're not a real interviewer. You must be the worst interviewer on it. I'm going, I don't give a fuck what you think, frankly. This is what I want to do. It's a chat. It's an informal chat. And the more relaxed my interviewees are, without patronizing them. I mean, it's not like I'm their best buddies, but I know a lot of them really well.
Yeah, you do.
The more relaxed they are, the more they divulge things that they would probably not in a normal interview.
But, for instance, you had Nile Rodgers on, who recently just won a Grammy for Beyonce's Cuff It, right, on her new Renaissance album. And she was delayed in track. I don't know if you got to watch the Grammys this Sunday or watch a reprop because
no, I didn't.
He got to talk for quite a bit and went up there and held the award and stuff. And you recently had him on your podcast not long ago, but a year ago or so, maybe 6 months, a year.
Yeah.
I mean, Nile Rodgers of Chic and, producing David Bowie's Let's Dance album and Black Tie, White Noise. We could go on for Bowie for hours. I know, because you're a huge devotee, as anybody who's in this biz should honor and know the legacy of David Bowie. But you've had a whole host of people on there. You've had Jeremy Corbyn, who is running for prime minister. So you don't just deal with musical figures. You deal with political figures, other artists, people who aren't necessarily musicians, but they're
Steve Coogan, the comedian actor.
Yeah.
And next week I'm going to be interviewing Don Letts, who is like a key figure in Big Audio Dynamite, but also a filmmaker and documenter of the kind of reggae scene and the soul scene, and documentaries all his life. So I mean, to me, creativity is just one vast spectrum, and I'm interested in all of it. And I would like to think that the people who listen to my podcast are as well.
Absolutely. And folks, if you go on to any of the podcast streams, go on to Patreon. If you listen to I know if you're into music and listen to podcasts, go on to Patreon and become a subscriber. Because you're listen, you're giving me your time. I'm more than happy to plug this wonderful podcast.
By the way, I don't make any money out of this shit at all. It costs me money to do it. So anybody, I'm determined to keep it advertising free and editorially independent.
Right.
So I can say anything I want. My guests can say anything they want. That we have complete creative freedom as to what information we impart to the public.
Which has been your credo since you've been in this business over 40 years now. What we're talking, 42, 43, 45 years now?
Well, 78, I suppose. Yeah, so 45 years. God.
Hey, there aren't, but you're not just, I mean, many people may, when we talk about the Human League, for instance, that was your idea. You came up with the name, I believe.
That's right.
Many people will go, oh, I know that in many interviews you've had people say, hey, you had a nickel for every time you've been asked what's in the water in Sheffield, why are there so many bands that come out of there? I imagine that the number of eye rolls you've had anytime you mentioned you're in the Human League. Oh, I love that song, Don't You Want Me, Baby?
Oh my God, I did. I've got a funny story for you.
Please.
So I did an American Zoom. I can't remember, and I wouldn't tell you the name anyway because he's probably upset. But it was somebody who recommended to me, and it was a big kind of podcast production. Like those ones that are like, "Hey, yeah, here I am this week. Today's episode is like in big
on some pop station."
But like a pop station.
Yeah,
and going and clearly had not done very much research. And underneath the opening statement was, "Don't you want me, baby?" And I had to say to him, I thought, well, you've earned this. I said, you do realize I had nothing to do with that song, don't you? And he didn't even start the interview again. He just went, "Oh well, okay," and then moved on to the next question. I'm going, anyway,
wanker. I'm sure the number of things going on you hear. But here's the thing: at least you got 1% of the, or something like that. Did you get a percentage point out of as a result of?
The
split, right?
Of the Dare
album, right?
It was to give to relinquish rights to the name of the Human League.
Right.
Myself and Ian negotiated that we would get 1% on the next album.
Right.
Unfortunately, it was Dare, which sold 10 million copies or something. So that kind of bought my first flat in London.
Look, I distinctly remember listening to the song. I mean, those analog synths, I loved it. I'm not going to tell you here I don't like the song or liked, when Jam and Lewis did.
Dare is a good album. Very good album.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that the way the split happened, but like I had mentioned to you, lucky Virgin Records, they got two, and Bob Last, your manager at that time, who you're still and had on your podcast and are still good friends with and still got a good rapport with.
Yeah.
He could see maybe the road ahead that perhaps at that time you didn't see, and it helped plant a seed in you and Ian. And then you got your mate from Sheffield, of course, Glenn Gregory, lead singer of Heaven 17, in a fantastic fucking covers band, not just covers band, people who actually work with David Bowie, the Holy Holy project that he does. Oh my God. Anyway, but when you went on to do Heaven 17, I said, we don't need this fascist groove thing is the first thing that let me back up just a little bit. For people who don't know the early Human League stuff, it is definitely worth checking out. And I know about 10 years ago or so, you performed both albums, not in a row, but both albums within a year or so of each other.
No, both albums on the same night.
Oh, both albums. Oh boy. Wish I could have been there.
It was really good, I have to say. We put a huge amount of effort into it. There were only two shows, one in the Roundhouse in London, which holds about 2,000 people, and one in Sheffield City Hall, which is again about 2,000. Both sold out. And we spent every penny that we earned from that gig was spent on production.
Mm-hmm.
So we had giant 5 meter by 4 meter screens, 4 of them, with digital content.
Yeah, you can see
similar, a kind of modern version of the kind of way that we used to present ourselves back in the late 70s,
with the video screens and the 2-inch tape
screen.
on.
So and the content was created and curated by Malcolm Garrett, who is a long-term
did the artwork behind me as well.
Helped us with the artwork on a lot of the album.
Right.
And it was literally, I think, according to what people tell me, and I certainly felt it on stage, it's like one of those unique occasions when it's like, hopefully in the future people will say, look, you had to be there, because it's not on film. There's no live album. It was just we could not have done it any better. No matter how much money or time we threw at it, it was as perfect as we could make it.
Did you actually professionally film and record it though, for archive?
Well, here's the thing. We did think about it, but the problem is that the Roundhouse in London, and this is not uncommon, by the way. I think the same is true for the Sheffield City Hall and a lot of venues. If you want to film using your own film crew, your own music, your own performance, they charge what they call a facilities fee. Even if you don't use any of their equipment, just to actually film in the venue, completely hermetically sealed your business. And they wanted to charge us over 10 grand for it, and we just couldn't afford it, because I mean, it would be a nice thing to do, but
if I win the lottery,
have a multi-camera shoot of it, because it would have had to be done properly with
right.
You know what? I've been involved in those kind of shows where we've had multi-camera shoots, and somewhere along the line, the actual paying customer's experience gets kind of compromised somewhat, because you've got cameramen in the way. You have to put tracks for the camera on dollies, and people on stage filming. And I just don't. Do you know what? In the end, we just went, firstly, it's going to cost too much. But even if it didn't, just want people to be completely engaged in what they're looking at and what they're hearing without any distraction. So that was the payment, you know.
Okay. Well, let me play a little sliver, and thank you for sharing all that. The Roundhouse used to be known as it's the Marquee. What was it known?
No. It's always been known as the Roundhouse.
Oh, has it always been known as Roundhouse? I'm thinking of something else.
It was very famous in the 60s,
yeah,
and 70s. In the 60s, late 60s, Pink Floyd played there and played a quadraphonic gig.
Right. For Dark Side.
Which was an inspiration for me in the immersive sound thing that we did.
Oh, cool. Which we're going to get to.
Yeah.
Because you are still, I guess I could say once a futurist, always a futurist.
Yeah.
You're always looking ahead to the next wave of sound.
That's right.
And
hey, let's see what you did there. That was good.
Well, you're only as good as the company you keep, Martyn. So, I always like to keep good company. And in my single years, I couldn't date dumb people. I just couldn't go on a date with somebody who was gorgeous looking, but there wasn't much upstairs to talk about and had no interest in science or the arts, or you
got to.
You've got to have somebody who's switched on.
Yeah.
Really. And in my life, in your life, you just can't sit here and talk to, and I appreciate you taking time to talk to little old me. But I want to give a snippet for people who don't know. And personally, the two versions of Being Boiled, the one that you would later re-record for Travelogue, which I do like the horn blasts and all that on it, but I love the starkness.
Yeah, everybody says the same thing.
I
must be the only person who prefers the other version, I think.
Yep. Hold on here. You can hear that?
No.
You can't hear it?
Okay, ready. Let's do it.
I can hear it now. Yeah. It's just gone, okay, ready, let's do it, and stopped. No, I can't hear it.
You can't hear it.
Little bit.
I don't know what I did, because last time I had it played where you could hear it fine. Wait a minute. Can you hear that?
I think it's the noise suppression on Zoom. It's suppressing it.
Oh, hold on. You know what? Can you hear that?
Yeah.
You can hear my music now?
Oh.
All right, now here we go. All right. Thank you. Now I understand what... I got somebody who knows a little bit about technology.
Ready. Let's do it.
God bless you. God bless you. Even in these dinky little headphones, the sound of it's just still... I don't think anybody's going to sue me for playing this, but... I just play a snippet of that before Phil Oakey starts singing. So the original, oh Lord Jesus. So the original lead singer Phil Oakey, humanly, who still is a member of the band, wrote these words. Listen to the voice of Buddha.
Yeah.
Saying stop your sericulture. I'm like, okay. And I need to mention that if you want to know more about Martyn beyond this podcast episode today, please go out and either get the audiobook version, buy the physical copy, the paperback edition of his accompanying book with the same title as his podcast, but it's called Electronically Yours Volume 1. Basically tracks from his growing up in his days in Sheffield from the 50s all the way up to 1992, when Brothers in Rhythm kind of remixed and kind of gave a jump back to the Heaven 17 career with their remix of Temptation, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
So with those lyrics and the angular stuff, Circus of Death, almost medieval, there were these sci-fi themes within the music that the later people listening to the Human League now would be like, that's the Human League? They sang about Circus of Death and all this stuff. Yeah, and it's well worth checking out. It's a shame. I don't know. I mean, I know you do the tracks. Does the current lineup of Human League do any of the early stuff at all that you know of?
I think they occasionally do Being Boiled.
Boiled, right?
But
Because
as far as I know, that's the only thing they do. They've kind of turned their back on the rest of it, which I think is a real pity. Which is part of the reason why we decided to go ahead and do those shows.
right.
Because we think that legacy deserves to be remembered. And the way that the audience responded to it, I think, there's a weird tribal thing going on. Some people are very loyal to Mark II, and some people are loyal to Mark I, and a very few people like both. And so there were a few people who were loyal to Phil, going, "Oh, why are you doing that with Glenn? It's never going to be as good as Phil." And I'm going, "Well, he wouldn't do it. We asked him to do it, and I owned those songs as much as Phil owns them, so
right.
we didn't do it."
Now, 11 years ago, I also will recommend to people not just to get your audiobook and physical copy of the book. I've listened to the audiobook twice and I really enjoyed it. I will say that there about 10, 11 years ago, during the concerts that you did a documentary, right? Now, what network was that? Was BBC4? Channel 4?
It was BBC Two. Actually.
BBC Two. Okay.
Yeah, and that was more than that. Actually, it was more like
15 years ago, something like that.
Something like that. And that's when we kind of kissed and made up after all the years of.
Because he's in an interview, and I'm like, so I mean, in 2023, are you at all on speaking terms with Phil at all? I mean,
yeah,
I know,
but he's
like,
just hard to contact. He doesn't respond to emails. He doesn't pick the phone up.
Okay.
I don't think it's just me. I think it's just
general. But it's just in general, right?
Occasionally, we bump into them at
festivals and stuff.
Some kind of multi-act shows that we do.
Yeah.
And it's all very civil, and I will always be grateful for being his friend. Because we had a great time.
Yeah, and that's
we learned a lot of stuff together.
That's a shame because you were mates when you grew up, but I mean, life's short. Hopefully, at some point, you guys can, I would love to see Human League and Heaven 17 double bill. I mean that.
Well, it might well happen. We are currently talking. Well, the idea was floated that possibly another version of the Steel City tour that we did in 2005, I think.
I didn't
where we did us, the Human League, and ABC.
Ooh.
So we did that, and we toured that in the UK, and there's some kind of something floating about that it might be something that they're interested in doing again.
Okay.
And we'd be up for doing that,
Oh, sure. So going to the Fascist Groove thing, because for me, I mean, I really didn't know your catalog, because here in the United States, Heaven 17 wasn't as aggressively marketed as you were over in the UK. But for me, I mean, we don't need this Fascist Groove thing. What a hell of a way to, we previously talked about this. What a hell of a way. I mean, you said you went for the jugular when you when you decided to, okay, now that we've got this acrimonious split from the band that I formed, and Ian Craig Marsh, to his credit, came along with you and said, he's your ride or die man, and you got Glenn involved. You literally came up with that song like within a day after the split.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, certainly a couple of days, and
couple of days.
Within a couple of days of Glenn coming to the studio for the first time and joining the band, as it were. In fact, the first thing that we did was to get him to sing over the backing track that we'd already created for our cover version of Wichita Lineman. And
the Rhinestone Cowboy himself, Glenn Campbell.
Yeah, which is one of my favorite songs. And we did that. And he knocked it out of the park, and then that's when we got down to the hard work of writing. And that was the first thing we wrote. And we knew we wanted to make it funky, so we ended up meeting this amazing bass player, John Wilson, who turned out to be an incredible rhythm guitar player as well. And the rest is history. You know, we knocked out the lyrics, which were predominantly the source material for which was the top 50 dance tracks in Record Mirror, the magazine Record Mirror. Sorry, American dance tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So we were looking at the titles, and we were kind of thinking, we want to use some of this content, like, you know,
Shake Your Groove thing.
Yeah, Shake Your Groove thing. And I can't remember. There was loads of them anyway, you know.
Well, you're a big Parliament Funkadelic, George Clinton,
Parliament
Funkadelic,
Hot US, I Feel Your Power, for instance, just means nothing, right? It was just, we thought it was hilarious. But then, as we were writing it, it took a kind of conceptual twist towards, we thought, wouldn't it be cool to actually use real names rather than just keep it on a kind of allegorical, metaphorical level? And so that's when we decided to name and shame Reagan. And
how right you were. I mean,
as a fascist god.
Yeah.
And that's what got us banned on Radio 1 in Britain.
Well, let's listen to a little of that. And as I'll make a comment later here, but I had shared with you previously when we met up. But this is still sounds great.
A strange version.
Everybody move to prove the groove. 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 Everybody move to prove the groove.
Have you heard it on the news about this fascist groove thing? Evil men with racist views spreading all across the land.
Okay, just a nice little taste, a little sliver, a little slice there.
You know, I just had a thought there.
Yeah.
Glenn sounds a bit like Ivan Doroschuk from Men Without Hats.
Little bit, and you had him on. He was a lovely.
He's a lovely chap, but it just struck me then that he sounded a bit like him on that. Anyway, sorry. Okay.
Cool. Hey, listen, I love getting snippets like this because you've done plenty of interviews, and who knows if that'll ever come across. This is a beautiful thing about spontaneous and live. Honestly, when we talked about this song, I said, well, this thing's got to be at least 160 beats per minute, and it's aggressively danceable. You described it as electro funk, and when you said that, I said, well, it kind of reminds me of Prince a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Comes out in 1981, around the same time I mentioned to you the Controversy album of Prince comes out, and it kind of, for me, his track Anti-Christian was definitely not a single at all, and if that had been put out by Warner Brothers, would also have been banned. But Anti-Christian, Antichrist, Until You're Crucified, I'll Live My Life in Taxi Cabs, and talks about Reagan getting shot and gun control, and he talks about Lenin getting shot, and all these different things are happening around that time, with an 80 and 81. How very much that John Wilson's contributions to your track kind of reminded me of that hyper funky stuff that he would be well known for later. Now, you used the Lynn drum machine not on this track, but the rest of Penthouse and Pavement, as you mentioned. What did you use on this track for the drum beats?
This is just the Roland System 100.
Just percussive noises off of the keyboard.
Yeah. But it's like the hardware sequencer.
Okay.
You could program up to 16 steps of different filters, different volumes.
Wow. This is the days
and you can get different steps of the sequence, hardware sequence, to trigger different sounds and that. And so that was Ian Marsh's department. He did all that stuff.
Oh, Ian, we missed you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's been a while. Am I correct that he's a public school teacher, public music teacher?
I have no idea.
That's what it says on Wikipedia, and you know how Wikipedia isn't always terribly accurate.
I really don't know. It could be. You know, the real sad part about all this is that he literally just stopped talking to me and Glenn one day.
Wow.
Out of the blue. We just done a TV show. I don't recollect us ever in our entire lives together, which is 30 years, ever having a crossword between us. Mm-hmm. We were just like very close brothers, you know. Yeah. And then one day, radio silence.
Wow. Well, you know, mental health, as we have especially known these last couple of years, has been a critical thing for folks, and you know, if that's the issue for him, mental health oriented, you know, wish him all the best, because you know,
it's not. He always suffered with bouts of depression, but I think you know, a diagnosis of different syndromes and stuff has developed over the years in mental health. So
sure.
I think what he was being treated with, which was therapy and some serotonin reuptake inhibitors and stuff like that, wasn't really helping him.
Yeah.
But he never really talked to us about it.
Yeah. Well, he grew up in an era where men didn't talk about those kind of things. It's a kind of verboten. You know, men and mental health. If you talked about your mental health, that's a sign. You grew up in a working class town in Sheffield, in the UK.
That's it.
Much like the Black Country in Birmingham, and you know,
it was a thing of shame. You know. I mean, I remember. I mean, my dad was 50 when I was born, so he was quite old.
Wow.
And it was only later on in my life that I heard my sister telling me the story that he just before he retired in his mid-50s, which must have been like when I was 5 or something.
Yeah.
He actually I had to spend a spell in a local mental hospital. And I never knew about this, of course, because I was too young to understand. But I think it was only a couple of weeks or something. Mm-hmm. But, you know, so it was hidden from me as part of the family and probably from the neighbours. Because when you live in a close-knit community, you know, it's like, oh, that's the guy he's a nutcase, right?
He's a nutter, right?
Yeah, and it's like just, you know, it just was a different time. Completely.
Thank God that, well, I mean, you know, some things have changed, some things haven't. I mean, as I've mentioned to you before, you know, we don't need this fascist groove thing. His main narrative thrust is ahistoricism, and
yes, precisely.
You know, things repeat themselves, but fortunately in the mental health world, I think things have come a lot.
Yeah, it can't go back to the dark ages. It was, you know.
Well, you look at Brian, one of my favorites. You look at Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, and I mean, he's got schizoaffective disorder, which is kind of a version of, you know, a mental health disability. It's not. What's the word I'm looking for? He's schizophrenic, but he's not schizophrenic. It's a form of schizophrenia, but it's not. But it was brought on by multiple drugs that he did through the years.
Oh my God!
All those hits of acid that he did.
They actually did gigantic amounts of drugs. I mean, I presume you've read the biographies of the Beach Boys. I mean, I mean, I grew up with, you know, they were a big influence for us, the Beach Boys. More
Good,
so,
Good Vibrations in particular was a big influence on you.
Yeah, that's right. And you always got the idea that there was a kind of latent sadness and kind of particularly Brian Wilson's compositions. It was, you know, but it's really not till later on we saw these documentaries and read the books that you realize that they were off their tits all the time.
No, they
for
were
decades. And so I'm not surprised that eventually, I'm surprised he's still alive, to be honest.
We all are. When you mentioned that, I immediately think of songs like "In My Room,"
In My Room, yeah. Oh no, and my favorite is
"Till I Die."
Till I Die. Yeah.
I'm a cork on the
ocean. What a song that is.
Give me a second, because that 1 minute and 40 some seconds of just depressing, haunting sheer the vocals on that song.
Yeah, everything about that song is, I mean, then you get into like Surf's Up, which is like an epic, and a kind
Leonard
of
Bernstein
masterpiece.
Yeah,
but Till I Die,
yeah,
is just heartrendingly beautiful.
And it's him. It's as autobiographical as that's what he felt like. But
yeah, like he had no control over his life or his state of being. Anyway, I'm a rock in a landslide. Wow.
Yep. Yeah. We'll get to a certain track on one of your later Heaven 17 albums where you've made a comparison. We'll get to that in a second. Hold that thought, Mark, because you see what I mean, folks? This guy, I'll throw out names and you'll be like, oh God, you could wax poetic at just about anybody I throw at you. But later on with Heaven 17, your production values exponentially increased. Your technical prowess. Now, you were not a trained musician, as you've said many times yourself. You were not a trained producer by any. You didn't go to production school. How did you learn to control the knobs and all these different recording? I know it's trial and error, but was it the help of engineers that you learned a lot of this stuff on the fly? So who was your go-to? Who was your mentor in terms of production?
So when we started, we just had a stereo tape machine where we bounced from track to track and added stuff. That's how a 2-track, and that's with no mixing desk, nothing. So just literally plugging into the back of the tape recorder. So
crazy.
So we learned very early to, because you have to make decisions when you're bouncing. About levels and stuff. That's like a de facto bit of training. Very useful bit of basic training about balance and what works, what doesn't, what you can put on there. That if you put something on top that obliterates what's underneath. So you have to keep things separate from a frequency point of view, etc. So you learn all that. Not through theory, but through practice. Then you move on to, then we got an 8-track tape machine, which we thought we were the Beatles at that point.
Sure.
Or other Beach Boys, we couldn't believe the freedom that gave us.
Oh, sure.
And we had a natural aptitude for it. And then we were trained at that point. We learnt from, there was a friend of Bob Lass called Tim Pierce, who was an engineer, and he came down, helped us set up our studio in Sheffield, and gave us some tips and showed us how to do various things on a more complex desk.
Sure.
With multiple EQs and compressors and outboard stuff like harmonizers and phasers and all. And so once you've learned one of those, multiple instances are just more of the same. So everybody goes into a recording studio and goes, how do you learn? Look at all those knobs.
Right.
And it's just literally just learning one channel strip, and it's just multiples, So
and it's multiple channel strips.
And then so you learn that, and then of course as we get better, we learn more about recording techniques and editing, tape manipulation through trial and error, right? And then what you're looking at is, as you go further on, say for instance when we do Reproduction, the first Human League album. That was learning about mixing techniques with somebody who'd just done Duran Duran, and he worked on low,
Oh, David Bowie, the Berlin period.
So, he worked on low with David Bowie. So we learned some of those techniques.
Yeah.
So he picked that up. And then we worked with Richard Mannering, who'd worked with loads of different artists, a different kind of engineer producer. We did Holiday 80 with, and some of the second album. You pick up stuff, don't you? And then Pete Walsh and Greg Walsh with Penthouse Playboy and Luxury Gap. And then we're moving into like the real, kind of Premier League of. Greg had worked with Jeff Emerick at Abbey Road,
Jeff Emerick,
who worked with the Beatles and did a lot of Beatles stuff.
Sure.
He was his mentor, so that was his teacher. Wow. So Jeff Emerick, and also from a songwriting and arrangement perspective, he worked with Rod Temperton.
Oh, who wrote Thriller and
Thriller and just a few.
Of shit. Among the things.
And Greg worked on Heatwave, which is where Rod Temperton proved his chops, right? Yep. And Heatwave were the techniques that Greg developed and learned from an arrangement stuff that he learned from Rod Temperton. He brought into the Hem 17 spectrum with vocal arrangement and just general mixing excellence. So it's a series of different people.
It really
towards the whole thing. And during all this time, of course, I'm doing B.E.F at the same time.
Let's bring that up for a hot second. Thank you for that wonderful segue. So B.E.F, for those in the States here who really don't know Martyn's catalog and breadth of work in his own oeuvre and in his productions for Tina Turner, Sananda Maitreya, artist formerly known as Terence Trent D'arby, you carried all this knowledge into your own projects. So fast forwarding, well, we're not really fast forwarding because we're still kind of in 1981 when the first B.E.F Music of Quality and Distinction Volume 1 comes out.
Yeah.
Right. You had originally slated a cover of the Temptations' Ball of Confusion was originally supposed to go to James Brown, Godfather of Soul.
Well, he'd agreed to do it.
Yeah.
And we'd got the flights booked and the studio booked in Atlanta. And then the day before he was due to fly, his lawyers rang up and said, you know that deal that we cut for the track that you want James to do? Well, we want it on all the tracks on the album. So instead of whatever it was, 3% pro rata, it was 3% on the entire album. We said, we can't do that because apart from anything else, we had a contract with everyone which had a favoured nations clause. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, it means if anybody gets certain terms, then you have to offer those same terms to everybody else.
Right.
That's the basis on which they agree, and that's how you get them to commit to doing it. For a reasonable price.
Right.
So they don't think they're getting ripped off. Yeah. So anyway, so that didn't happen, and it just was coincidence that somebody came into the Virgin Records office at that time and said, "Oh, I'm just heading over to LA. Would you be interested in working with Tina Turner?" I'm going, and I'd just seen her perform in London, the Proud Mary show. Yeah. And she didn't have a record contract at the time.
Crazy to think about that.
And she was cold as cold could be.
Yeah.
She was a has-been in the public eye.
I can't...
In 1981, right?
Yeah.
And
split with Ike.
Jump. Yeah. Well, River Deep Mountain High is one of my top favorite 3 singles of all time.
Phil Spector's production on that. Yeah.
Have you seen the Phil Spector documentary?
Yes.
It's hard, isn't it? It's a hard watch.
He's a hard watch. I mean, he was a talent. I mean, he was a talented but crazy. And again, Martyn, we can go back a figure like him and bring mental health back into the conversation because I'm sure he was probably bipolar disorder or something.
Oh, absolutely,
no question in my mind.
1,000%. But I was watching that documentary series and I'm going, this guy. there's a certain type of flower that blooms in Los Angeles in terms of people. And I think it's to do with people are physically separated a lot of the time. They stay in their houses.
Yeah.
They go anywhere, they stay in the cars. They don't really mix in the way that people do in New York or
there's no public transportation in California.
There's no public
really to speak of. Yeah.
And I think so that allows that particular flower to bloom into this absurd, monstrous bloom where nobody's saying anything to him. And he just allows him to go on and on into this weirdness, which turns into a complete delusional, self denying of any wrongdoing. I mean, that was just crazy ass shit he was talking.
Oh.
I mean, he could be put in a lunatic asylum just for the denial of, look, she was just there, nothing to do with me. Look, she shot herself. It's obvious. It's like, rare, sure, mate. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I unfortunately, Terry Melcher, who had also worked with the Beach Boys, actually produced Kokomo for the Beach Boys and co-wrote the song without Brian Wilson's involvement. Talks about working with Phil, and let's not forget, Sonny Bono was an assistant engineer.
Is that right?
Yes, he was, sir. Yes, he was.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Cher is actually singing on, I believe, on River Deep Mountain High.
No.
Not shitting you. They had to put her way in the fucking back because her voice was so present.
Oh, yeah.
She's still at her age, can still, carry a tune.
Yeah.
But, oh my God. See, the thing is, we could go in all these different, and I love, and see, this is if you like this kind of conversation and dialogue on podcasts, you're going to love Martyn's podcast because he gets more out of his guests by this casual,
I believe that's true.
With this casual banter. I totally am on board with it because you get stuff out of Tony Visconti, for instance, who was one of David Bowie's main producers for a long time, and then came back to him for the last couple albums towards the end of his life, including his final studio album, Black Star, which
is a great album. Yeah. Painful to listen to, though.
It is, but a masterpiece.
Yeah, it is.
Lazarus and the title track and the whole thing. And using jazz musicians and just don't get me started on that. We could spend an hour on. I want to spend the time with but he's a fabric of your world because you talk about your early influences, going from Roxy Music when Brian Eno was still in there, and Brian Eno would go on to later work and produce.
That's right.
For
and
Bowie.
Robert Fripp, lest we forget.
Oh, King Crimson.
So I actually did. It's not been. Have we put it out yet? Toya Wilcox. I've just done Toya Wilcox on my podcast.
Oh.
And what a delight! I mean, I've known her for years and years, but never really had a chance to talk to her for an hour. Yeah. What a super intelligent and erudite woman she is. Yeah. Amazing. You would never think so, but she is. She's incredible. And so I got talking to her about Bob Fripp, and I mean, I'd love to get him on my podcast. He's my favorite guitarist in the world. Bar none.
He used to have a record label. John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin was on it for his solo albums called Discipline Global Mobile or something like that. Fripp had an independent record label back in the late 90s, early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. Right. And John Paul Jones was on that. I don't know if you know anybody who knows him that could get to rock Bob Fripp, but he'd be a good person to put on your podcast.
Have you seen the King Crimson documentary, by the way?
No, I haven't.
You've got to see it.
Well, I'm a documentary.
Amazing.
Listen, I'm a documentary. If we talk about favorite movies, Standing in the Shadows of Motown.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, one of the greatest. 20 Feet from Stardom.
Yeah, it's great.
Music documentaries are my thing. Okay, just my.
the King Crimson one is. it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Toya about it because she was actually, check this out. She was co-opted by the director who fell out with Robert Fripp halfway through the filming of the documentary. Bob Fripp fell out with him because he was being a bit of an asshole. So he co-opted Toya to do some secret filming of him for the documentary. And it's fine because, in the end, it all was fine, and it all got included and stuff. But you've just got to watch it. It's
okay. I wonder where I can stream it. I'm wondering where I can stream it.
Can you not get it? Get a VPN and stream it on UK.
Believe me, folks, if you ever need any tips about how to fix your computer and like that,
don't contact me.
No, but you're full of handy advice, Martyn, which is why you've been in the bit. I mean, you're as we get older, our skill sets
not resourceful.
Well, here's the thing, though, and that's the message that I want to drive home, at least when it comes to your longevity in the career, beyond any success you had in the 80s on your own in production, stuff like that. You branched out into 3D soundscaping and doing with the founding member of Depeche Mode, I might add. I find it interesting that two former founding members of pivotal bands of the 80s onwards are working together and have worked together for more than 20 years.
Yeah, true. I've never thought of it that way, actually.
It's interesting, but you guys have pushed sound technology forward with your. We'll go to Illustrious for a hot second, because I find that the most of all the things that you do, and we'll go back to your production work with Tina and all that for a second, but we can jump the timeline because I know you don't mind. But I find it very engaging and interesting that your sound technology research and production for various. If I go back to my notes here, which you guys have done, okay, so 3D sound installation, Illustrious company. You have been doing immersive sound installations for various museums, galleries, opera houses, National Portrait Gallery, Museum of London, the Royal Ballet, where I think you did a thing of Firebird.
No, it was
Stravinsky. It was Stravinsky, right?
No, it was Shostakovich's
Shostakovich
Sixth Piano Concerto, but we bookended it with some original composition, and we created a new narrative about the story of Petrushka.
Ooh, okay. I knew Petrushka. That's right. I got Stravinsky.
And I got Andy Bell in from Erasure to sing a solo part from one of the balconies as a kind of noises off type thing.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sure.
Part of the whole thing. Anyway, it was a big success, and I'm proud to say that the composition has now entered into the annals of the Royal Opera House into the big book of things that can be restaged. And they've got all the assets saved and everything. And I had roses thrown at me. And that's never happened before, even though it was on the cover of How Men Are. Interesting.
Your favorite Heaven 17 album.
Yeah, my favorite
that you've done. Right. You instead of throwing roses, you threw a lot of money at that album.
A lot of money.
Right.
I think it was worth it, and it's only only a twist of fate that meant that it didn't do. It was at the beginning of the decline.
Yeah, but if you didn't take your left turns and see where it goes in your career, I mean, many bands that follow up a success with something and said, you know what, we can afford, we'll still have an audience that'll come see us. And you weren't necessarily a touring entity, but you had a loyal, very loyal following.
Oh yeah, millions, yeah.
And here in the States, you did your first U.S. tour, delayed for 3 years because originally you're supposed to come here in 2020. Yeah. You weren't necessarily a touring entity because in the States, and especially in the 80s, if you toured, that's where you you got more.
Yeah, we
well-known.
didn't want to devote our lives to touring, and that's what you really needed to do in America to make it work.
Which is why you're still alive, probably.
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
It'd be like Depeche Mode now. Would have been in rehab for years. Possibly.
Oh Jesus! Well, we could talk off the air about that one. I mean, Dave Gahan. I mean, I love his baritone. I love Depeche Mode. I know. We'll talk off the air, but I love their stuff as well. But Vince Clarke's early contributions to them have certainly. Very
I mean, I tell you, I have a thing about. I have a little personal thing. Not just about Depeche Mode, because I think Martyn Gore's a good songwriter, and and I've never really spent any time with them, so I can't speak about them personally.
Yeah.
But you know what? I have a little bit of a mistrust of bands that start off in one mode and then switch to something else. Like Depeche Mode. Am I meant to believe they are these dark kind of they were a little bit like, kind of Chris and Cozy type thing a bit later on.
Yeah.
When they were doing like bubblegum pop to start off with. I don't get it. And actually, this is another controversial hot take. Whenever I used to look at the Annie Lennox and who I love, by the way, and some of those great songs they did, I just couldn't get the Tourists out of my head, which were like almost like a pub rock band. So I don't know. I think it's just part of my Sheffield thing. It's like I mistrust people who are chameleonic, but if that's a word. But then, having said that, I love Bowie. So
I was just gonna say no, but you knew.
There was always a thread going through Bowie's.
There was a narrative thread going through Bowie. There was always a tongue-in-cheekiness about it too.
Yeah.
I mean, a lad insane. I mean, a lot of people didn't, get the play on words on that. I mean, a lot of Americans especially wouldn't have gotten that, and the whole Ziggy Stardust period, Diamond Dogs.
Prince, getting back, I'm such a pro. Getting back to the subject. So Prince is has a massive influence on us as well. And was also a bit of a chameleon himself, wasn't he?
Oh, sure.
But you would always know something was Prince just because of his guitar and his voice.
But he would change his hairstyle, his look. He would, the hip hop. He was kind of confused what to do with hip hop, and his own manager, Alan Leeds, talks about that, and that with the microphone shaped like a gun, and the whole thing.
You've got to be careful with that, messing around with that vernacular, because a lot of there's been, by the way, a fantastic multi-part series on BBC that's just been shown about the history of hip hop, which is another thing you should watch. It's really good.
I'll nick it later.
Chuck D on there, who's hosting, and
he's doing a PBS series over here in the States, by the way. Just to
it might be the same thing.
Maybe it is. Might be. Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, it's really good, and I was watching that, and even before I was watching it, I was thinking the problem with hip hop is that it got subverted by bad faith actors, largely a white business. And selling, and they wanted to sell it to a white audience and teenage audience, and so sex and violence, and drugs.
Yeah.
So and so, I've got an enormous amount of respect for a lot of hip hop stuff. I remember when Nas became
oh my god, I was just going to mention
massively popular, and I'm going, this is fucking awesome, and it doesn't sound like it's trying to kowtow to a more white popular sensibility.
Illmatic is probably one of the 90s raps. If you had to make a Rosetta Stone, Rosetta Stone, what's the oh Jesus, if you had to put the Mount Rushmore, that's the word I couldn't think of.
Yeah.
The phrase, if you put a Mount Rushmore of 90s hip hop,
Illmatic
is in that Rushmore.
Awesome. Yeah.
And the production on that.
Oh, it's brilliant. But not only that, it sold huge amounts.
Yep.
Gigantic amounts.
Yep.
Nobody was going, oh, is it selling to the black market? What's the demographic? It was just good,
Yep.
right? So anyway, I think a lot of hip hop got, as we all know, got subverted by people.
On that note, one of my intellectual crushes in life is Amir Questlove Thompson. You know, I have an intellectual crush on him.
Yeah.
At the Grammy Awards this year, you probably heard about or maybe even seen clips. They did a 50th anniversary hip hop tribute with him orchestrating, playing drums on, with the whole host of acts going from all the way to the very beginning. DJ Kool Herc. And Busta Rhymes was in there. Public Enemy, one of my favorites, was there.
Yeah.
Just Chuck and you know.
I think Jimmy Fallon did a thing about the history of hip hop, and he went
kind of did. It was kind of clever.
I do like him. Actually,
Questlove had a hand in that. Questlove had a huge.
I'm sure he did. Yeah.
Oh, you know, I mean, if anybody knows, I mean, it's your podcast and Questlove's podcast that I vacillate between the two because
I'm very, very honored. Thank you so much.
No, the honor is mine because he fills in a whole other. And you talk to artists who have delved into that world, so it's not like you don't talk about it. You definitely have kept hip hop in your conversation on your podcast, but you cover a whole other breadth of artists and stuff. It's kind of a bookend for me. I mean, as a person who was in the opera world for 14, 15 years and then kind of left and went into education and other things, I've been able to play these last 3 years. I've been able to personally play catch up with 40 years worth of music that I knew, but I don't think I knew as well and in depth. And you have definitely helped me personally fill in a lot of blanks. Oh, I didn't, because you're welcome.
Listen, it's filled in a lot of blanks for me.
I'm sure it has.
It's not, most of the stuff, and I'm not talking about the research you do online, Wikipedia or anything like that. I'm talking about personal stories, because ultimately the people that what tends to happen is the people whose music you love, the meaning is derived from the people they are. And I think what I do is fill in that gap. So you get to feel for a brief period of time that you're in their company. And so it deepens your appreciation of the music.
Well, you make us want to be part of the conversation, because I'll find myself on a run listening with my earbuds and I'm going, oh, but what? Maybe you should have but why didn't? I'll find myself adding my own third person narrative into the conversation. But that to me, that's what makes a successful podcast.
You're engaged. You're fully engaged.
That's the magic word. The engagement is, the engagement's there 150%. And I appreciate that you're taking your own time and money to do it.
Yeah.
Your assistant Chaz seems to be a wonderful guy as well.
Yeah, he writes some great tunes. Those little snippets are really cool.
That's his stuff, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So in the beginning and the end, right now, the whole,
the beginning, I wrote that, but that's just
Electronically Yours with Martyn, Ware.
That's your whole bit.
That's me.
Okay, all right.
That's my voice as well.
I've got a few gimmicks. Okay, now, which I'd like to talk, if you don't mind, if you got time. When I talked about your use of pitching up vocals, speaking, pitching up vocals and pitching down vocals, which I can do with a little button on a little podcast
I need
machine.
one of them.
Back in the day, it's gimmicky, and I try not to use it too much, but it illustrates a point that
I might do an entire episode with the high voice.
Well, maybe you could get Dweezil Zappa on there and do a tribute to Frank Zappa's, Frank's son or Moon Unit. Get them on there.
You don't happen to know Dweezil by any chance, do you?
I could, no, but Jelly Bean Johnson, who I do know well, and his common law partner in crime, Marty Bragg. They have a couple kids together, and they're very, very much in a relationship together. Never got married, but he worked on. I may have told you this already, so pardon me for repeating myself. But when it came time to do the video mix, because Jelly Bean John, we can talk off the air about Jelly Bean not getting any royalties for this either, but he wrote and produced Black Cat for Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation album.
Right.
And when it came time to do the video mix, they hired Michael Wagner, who was very well known for working in the heavy metal community, and did a kind of a metal, kind of like early Metallica stuff. And they brought in Nuno Betancourt, the guitarist for Extreme, to do the overdub for the guitar tracks for that. They did it at Frank Zappa's studio.
Right.
And Jelly Bean Johnson, who wrote one of your favorite Jam Lewis criticized for Alexander O'Neill.
What a song.
Yeah, I talked to Jelly Bean about that. I mentioned to him that he should be on your podcast. So
he should.
And I'm gonna message I'm gonna send this episode to Marty. Marty, if you're out there, ask Uncle Bean to come on and talk about that, because
I'd love to.
He not only is an amazing drummer, musician. He does not sing, though. He's not a singer. He'll tell you the first thing. He can shred on the guitar.
Right.
That man can. I've seen it personally. I've seen him do Maggot Brain, a cover of Maggot Brain in a band. When I went to visit Minneapolis this summer and went to Paisley Park and did all this stuff, I interviewed him at this Minnesota Music Club. On Wednesday nights, he plays with JB and the Routine. Amazing group of musicians, all live covers of Boz Scaggs, and they do all kinds of shit. And at the very end of the show, he does a mind-melting version of Maggot Brain.
Wow. Cool.
But he's a huge Zappa head too, like you are. Yeah. And going back to the original train of thought here was that you utilized a lot and actually taught me something about the fact that you got the idea of doing the Ware speed. And when I say Ware speed, you would take the tape and slow it down or speed it up so that your vocals were higher or lower.
Yeah.
And you would do that on many tracks in Heaven 17.
Many.
A lot of backing vocals too. Am I mistaken? Did you do that on Ball Confusion for Tina Turner as well?
Yeah.
Run.
Yeah.
That had the Ware speed on it.
That's right. Not all of it, but like the lower part.
But to kind of give it that. It gave a. I mean, you could tell it was lower vocals.
Run, but you just can't die.
Yeah.
That low. Not even Glenn could get that low, so we did record it at higher speed and pitch it down.
Well, mind if we put a little bit of snippet of that on it? So, folks, this is what got the ball rolling for Tina Turner's reintroduction and reimmersion into the second phase and most popular phase of her career. For those who don't know, Martyn produced a cover, and we went back to this earlier. James Brown was to have done this, and we heard the story from you on that. You get Tina to do this, and let's let the music. All right, so I wanted to illustrate that, but run.
But John McGeoch, what a genius guitarist he was.
Who's the guitarist again? I'm sorry.
John McGeoch, who played in Magazine and later with Susie and the Banshees.
Susie's going to be doing a festival tour coming up pretty soon. I heard.
She is.
Oh, and, bless her.
I did 2 tours with her, so
Early Human League.
I have to flag some tickets.
Early Human League. That's when you got all spit up with gobs of blood.
That's it. That's the big story. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, folks, you have to get his audiobook or read the chapter about Human League touring with. I
could have had hepatitis to this day if I'd have gotten lucky.
That's probably why you had a natural immunity to COVID 4 decades before. Because of that one gig, right?
Maybe, yeah.
But in reality, you toured with when you were in the early version of Human League. You actually did more touring with them than Heaven 17.
Yeah, that's right.
And Susie and the Banshees, who I got to see at the Lollapalooza, very first Lollapalooza festival in '91, when
Right.
Kiss Them For Me, I believe, was very popular at that time.
Well, this was when we toured with her when she was a
Early.
bona fide pop star with Hong Kong Garden.
Yeah, that
UK,
early
it was
days.
like, I think it was number one even, maybe,
Yeah.
or number two.
Yeah. She's brilliant, and
she's just a great performer.
and a lovely person.
And
I
a lovely
understand.
person, yeah.
Yeah. So, and they really looked after you on that tour.
They took us under their wing. But looking back at it now, I'm going, they were only like, we thought, oh, these are real grown-ups, proper rock stars. They were only like 3 years older than us.
Than you were. But when you're young like that, 3 years is a huge difference.
Yeah, I suppose so.
It's like, here in the States, a freshman looking up to a senior in high school is the same idea, oh my God, you got so much more rings around the old tree there.
Yeah.
So as a result of that track, you got offered by Roger Davies, her manager, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Roger Davies, who's, there's a whole feature in the movie, What's Love Got to Do with It, where I want to sound like Bowie and Jagger and all this stuff. And she went, right. And God bless Angela Davis for that. I love her. But they offered you, would you guys write us a couple of songs? And I can imagine how intimidating that was to writing for 10 to 2.
It was totally, well, there were two things. One is we were intimidated and frightened to write for literally somebody we regarded to be a goddess.
Yeah.
And like, one of the greatest female singers of all time.
No
This found it too daunting. But also, we were in the middle of writing and in the studio creating Luxury Gap. And we were writing a lot of the stuff at that time, and it would have been too much of a distraction.
And you didn't want to give away anything that you were necessarily using on your own album.
Not that. It's like, how do you write for a voice like Tina, for God's sake? We at that time only ever wrote for ourselves.
Right.
We were writing for a specific mood and kind of production, and to go all of a sudden that's why B.E.F was a separate project. It's like you could be free with that and do what you wanted.
Yeah.
But to actually go, no, it's not. Oh, can you give us the Heaven 17 sound? No, it's not, because like when we did Let's Stay Together, for instance, that's not really a Heaven 17 sounding. It's beautiful, but and well produced, but it doesn't sound like Heaven 17. So that, you know what I mean? So people come to you as a songwriter for what you do. And I remember I mentioned it in the book, actually.
You do. Mm-hmm.
When Dan Hartman came to me and said, I want that European, I want that European futurist sound, or whatever he said. I'm going, what? We just do what we do, I don't know. I said, fine, well, if you want to pay me to do it, you can come along and do it. But I don't know. It's not like a setting on an effects pedal. You go, okay, let's switch it to European futurist.
It's not Bird's Instant Custard. You just don't pour it in.
No. But and also we never felt that way. Even bands we really respected, like say the Temptations, for instance.
Sure. Yeah.
If they wrote a hit song, it's a very common thing in Motown, but in pop in general, in America, to go, well, we've written a hit song, we'll write another song, change a few things, and we'll have another hit. And a lot of time it worked, to be fair, and that turned out to be the kind of theory for Stock Aitken and Waterman later on.
Sure.
In the UK. So, but we didn't. That was anathema to us. We didn't want to do that. So it's a long-winded answer, but we didn't.
I love it.
Right. We weren't ever pitching ourselves to write for other people, ever. It's not something we wanted to do.
Well, I guess they thought that you guys had an assembly line mentality. No, they didn't think that because I can't imagine that's how you worked.
No, I can't. But ironically, the B.E.F thing, which is a lot more open in terms of palette.
Sure, yeah,
is more like it. But I just don't really. I don't ultimately believe, looking back, that there was such a thing as the Heaven 17 sound or the Martyn Ware production sound.
No,
it's because it's like it's a changeable feast. It's a movable feast. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, your production stuff on Tina Turner's Private Dancer album sound nothing like what you did for Sananda Maitreya's debut album. I mean, if I may, so you produced 2 tracks for Tina Turner's multi-platinum Private Dancer album, and many people may not know you produced the cover of the Reverend Al Green. I mean, Al Green, one of the great all-time singer-songwriters, souls. Oh, I mean, how can you not? If I'm having a shitty day, I want to put Al Green on and instantly. I mean, he's instant Valium, mental Valium right there. He just mellows me the hell out. So this beautiful sonic tapestry. I'll put a little of that on.
Let me say the since, baby, since we've been together, ooh, loving you forever.
That voice
is all I need. Let me be the one you come running to. I'll never be untrue.
I get goosebumps.
Oh, baby, let's stay together. Loving you weather times are good or bad. Happy or sad.
I don't want to take this off. I feel sacrilegious for
I know
interrupting it because
it's a beautiful thing. I mean, she has the ability to connect directly with whatever causes an emotional response in your brain. I believe that's true. She has that magic secret ingredient, and she's always had it. She had it with River Deep Mountain High. She had it. Oh my God! I mean, that performance was completely one take intact. There was no drop-ins, no adjustments, no compilations. That was one take, first take, perfection.
She's a pro. This is what the 2%ers do. Yeah. They go in, they do their shit. They'll give you another take if you want, and I think she gave you another take, but it's not like you needed it.
As I said in the book, it's like she said, "Do you want me to do another take?" So, well, don't need to, but we'll do one for Lloyd's, as they say.
What studio was that done in, Martyn? L.A. somewhere?
No, it was in London.
It was in London.
I think it was in EMI's studios in.
Because she was a Capitol artist at that time, right? Yeah. She was being signed to Capitol.
It was EMI's Whitmore Street. Anyway, just off Tottenham Court Road. Yeah.
Now, was that all done on the Fairlight?
Some of it was. Some of it was. God, what was it now? I think some of it was Synclavier.
Oh, Synclavier. Okay, sure.
I think some of the string sounds were Synclavier.
It's
and then the drums were, I programmed them, the Lindrum.
Okay, that was a Lindrum. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, and of course the sonic template that I wanted to impersonate was actually from "I Want You" by Marvin Gaye. So that the sound of the congas that on the original "I Want You" sounds a bit like Sonar. I spent 3 or 4 hours trying to exactly perfect the reverb that would sound like that, and I think that's as much of a hook in that song to me. and you don't. People wouldn't think of it because they're so distracted by her brilliance and the beautiful guitar playing of Ray Russell and the fantastic keyboard playing of Nick Cletus in the middle eight.
Yeah.
God, I mean, it's just, I'm so proud of that.
Yeah, is that your favorite production of yours that you've ever done?
Oh, yeah.
How can it not be? I mean, you had Tina Turner. I mean, you didn't need to do anything. So did she have any specific requests? And she just came in and she didn't say, I like to use these microphones when I'm in the studio?
She comes from a tradition of you don't question anything. That's what it seemed to me.
Yeah.
So it's like she came from the headspace of total respect for whoever songwriters stroke producers are. Her job is to deliver a performance.
Right.
And she's already figured out what she wants it to sound like.
Yeah.
She's already rehearsed it herself in her head.
Right.
And, she's of such a level of experience that she knows anything that she can conceptualize in terms of performance, she can deliver.
Yeah.
Right. So that you're already looking at 0.1% of people in the professional singing world who can do that.
Yeah. It's her and Aretha Franklin. To me.
That's it.
In that genre, it's her and Aretha Franklin.
Maybe Patty Austin. I really like Patty
Sure.
Austin.
I'll go with that. Sure.
That's about and in the male world, I would say, God, I'm a really big fan of Seal. I think in terms of emotional connection,
Trevor Horn.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's in his voice,
Yeah, oh no, true, but
I know
Horn.
Trevor's brilliant.
Yeah, I know. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that Seal and Trevor Horn is going out on the road, going out on tour. I just saw an advert.
Wow.
And he's putting together a version of the Buggles as the opening act.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't lure me in.
That wouldn't lure me in either,
I wasn't a big Buggles fan, but I am an enormous fan of his production work and his arrangement work. And
no, you don't like that? Video Killed the Radio Star?
No, I really never liked that tune. No.
Nah.
And I didn't like his stupid big glasses either.
Oh. He borrowed it. It looks like something Elton John would have worn on stage.
Oh, no,
but he can get away with it.
He looked. I'll tell you what he looked like at that point. He's not going to thank me for this, but to me, he looked like, in every big office, there's always one guy who likes to think he's wild and crazy, And in fact, they're not at all. And he looked like one of those dudes.
The quirky guy.
Yeah, the quirky guy.
The hipstery quirky guy.
Yeah, well, not even hipstery. He's actually really uncool, but he thinks it's funny.
Yeah. Got you.
Anyway, of course, I don't care because he's a genius producer.
No, my God. No question. How old is Trevor Horn now?
He's probably my age, kind of.
Okay.
Mid-60s, I should imagine.
All right, so when you did the 1984 song, cover David Bowie from the Diamond Dogs album, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Was that in the same session, or was that over a separate period, or?
Same session. Yeah.
Wow. That's just.
So I did. I mean, I had to explain to her, the theory behind doing 1984 because I knew she liked Bowie.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if we did this track? Firstly, it's a great song. Secondly, I think you can do it great. But thirdly, it's going to come out in 1984. How contemporary can you possibly be?
And she wanted to emulate herself more like a Jagger or a Bowie front person.
So that song is, in fact, that entire Diamond Dogs album is massively underrated. I think,
sure.
In his oeuvre, and Diamond Dogs, fantastic.
Yeah. So,
Candidate, one of my favorite tunes of all time.
I listen. You put on any David Bowie album. I'm not really fond of the very first album he does, but he's still finding his footing. But from then on, I mean, he certainly found.
There was the one that he did in Montreal, which I wasn't part of. What was that one? not Black Tie, White Noise.
That was Brian Eno that produced. Oh no. Yeah, no. That was Nile Rodgers that did Black Tie, White Noise.
Before that, the one before that,
Never Let Me Down.
He was in a very dark place at that point.
Yeah, day in, day out. However, though, that Glass Spider tour with Peter Frampton on guitar was fucking brilliant.
I didn't see it. No.
I didn't see it either, but I mean, I've seen the concert footage of it and stuff. I mean, I love Peter Frampton's playing. You know, brilliant musician. Well, we're going to get to people go listen to the 1984 track. I'd love to play it, but I want to get to this. So the guy who produced those tracks and some of the songs we played also produced this little ditty. Drum sound.
Kissing like a bandit, stealing time underneath the sycamore tree. Cupid by the all Saint Valentine's, to my sweet lover and me. Slowly but surely, your appetite is more than I knew. Sweetly, softly, I'm falling in love with you.
And as many of you might know, that is Wishing Well from the multi-platinum monster debut album by the artist formerly known as Terence Trent D'arby, currently known as Sananda Maitreya, introducing the Hardline According to. That whole album.
Oh, it's just, I mean, I have to say I'm very proud of that as a piece of production. That's the best album production I've done by a long way, I think.
Sure.
And
the drum sound.
Yeah, it's so cool, isn't it? But we were heavily influenced at that point by Let's Dance. You know,
I could totally see that.
Yeah,
I could totally see that.
That was the inspiration behind that drum sound. But I must say to people, if they want to seek it out, I've just done a Dolby Atmos remix of that album.
Oh, you did? Okay,
I have, and it's available on Amazon Music,
iTunes as well.
And iTunes in binaural, and you've got to listen to that shit. It sounds really good. I must say, I did a really good job on it. It sounds excellent. So I would definitely check that out.
Now, for those of us that may not know this, I do. I have an inkling because I've talked to you about this prior. You actually, you and Vince, or was it mainly you, were consulted the Dolby Corporation.
Yeah, that's right.
Regarding
this. It was me.
And it was you. Because they conceded that your 3D soundscape system that you're working with exceeded theirs. You know, how could we make ours a little bit better? So,
but they actually, I mean, I can't prove it. But guess what? Once they'd in detail looked at our software system, and the way and our user interface for the 3D sound system, guess what? Their design radically changed to look pretty similar to ours, and never got paid for any consultancy. They kind of ripped us off, to be honest. So, yeah. I'm afraid big corporations tend to be a little bit like this.
I listen. Show of hands, anybody who's totally surprised that big corporation would do something like that.
I've since then I've kissed and made it with Dolby, and you know they've apologized, or the latest set of executives have apologized. Still offering me any money. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So, well, you know what though. Folks, he's still involved in the future of how the sound is progressing and where it's going. You know, all these iterations of recording sound that you have seen, you know, you've worked with, you know, cutting your own tape, physical tape. You know, kids won't remember this shit, but you know, magnetic tape. You literally, there's that story you have where you had a bit of one of your songs on your shoe.
Right. Flashy Screws thing.
Yeah, it was Fascist Groove thing, right? Can you give us a little?
I can tell you about that. Yeah.
Please.
So we were editing it. It was a bit too long, the original version that we'd put onto master quarter inch. So we thought we'd better edit. We were messing about with editing different sections, see which structure would work. Now, of course, you do that on digitally easily now on Logic or whatever.
Nobody will ever have a clue these days. Nobody will have a clue.
It takes seconds, but this was physically cutting tape. So we're cutting tape and swapping sections around, and we eventually get the structure we like. And coming out of the bass solo in the middle of Fascist Groove Thing, going back into the main body of the song, just felt like it was just pushing, or it felt like there was, I don't know, the timing wasn't quite right. And we're going, what the fuck is going on here? So eventually we came to the conclusion that it was like there must be a bit of tape missing somewhere. Sometimes I don't know. Anyway, so we're looking around everywhere. We've got bits of tape on, sticking, on the tape that you used to stick the tape together, stuck to the desk, and we're looking around on the floor. It's everywhere. After about an hour of looking, this is actually just before we're about to leave our studio to go to the mastering suite to cut the single.
Oh shit!
And we're sat there going, well, God knows what we're going to do about this. I don't know, see how we can.
Yeah.
And I'm sat down and across my legs, and Glenn says, what's that on the sole of your shoe? And it was a tiny, it was like 1/8 of an inch of quarter-inch tape.
Jesus God.
We edited it back in, and it worked. And that is actually in the final version of Fascist Groove Thing.
That's incredible. Holding Fascist Groove Thing for a second, and kids will not know today what that's like, Martyn, unless they are really wanting to learn how to use actual physical tape. Because now, you use Pro Logic or whatever you use, Pro Tools, whatever DAW, digital audio workstation that people use, will never know the struggle it took. You actually cut your own tape, right? You yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, that's an art form itself. I mean, Paul McCartney was excellent at doing that, actually. For the benefit of Mr. Kite-Off, the Sgt. Pepper's album is legendary. He was looking at Edgar Varese and Stockhausen and all these,
That's
folks.
right. That's right.
People didn't realize how, I don't think some of his solo career was quite that adventurous, but
he did an electronic album,
Yeah, he did.
I've never heard it. But,
I haven't either. I don't even know what it's called. Now I gotta put one more thing on my iPod.
But the other thing that was always really quite tricky and difficult, and was a genuine skill, was what they call flying in vocals. So you do a submix of some backing vocals, for instance, on a separate tape machine, and then you do a kind of submix of that. And to get it back onto the original multi-track, you'd have to copy from one 24-track machine to another manually. So you'd have to go, right, we're coming up to this point. You'd have to mark a point with a Chinograph pencil on the 2-inch tape. And when you saw it past the tape head, you'd press it in advance, because it takes a small amount of time to get up to speed, and then record it. And you'd probably have to, on average, do it 3, 4, 5 times before you got it right, or you were happy with it. You can't imagine.
No. But
and
you had to have your shit together.
Imagine doing a mix, like we did with Temptation, for instance. Imagine doing a mix where we were right at the cutting edge of technology at this point. We were running 3 synchronized simultaneous 24-track machines. So every time you stopped that machine, there was a synchronizing device called a lynx, which drove the speed of the motors on the 3 machines.
Right.
It would take 15 seconds sometimes for the 3 machines to synchronize. So if you had to go back and do another vocal take for like a backing vocal or something, you'd have to wind back 15 seconds to give them time to synchronize. Yeah. All this bullshit. No wonder we spent £300,000 on the 3rd album. you know.
That's a good thing you made nearly that when you produced for Sananda for the debut album.
Made a lot more than that.
Well, true. I mean, at least you made recouped it in some way, shape, or form. So Temptation, off the Luxury Gap. That's that production, that whole album, and I've said this to you before. My favorite production wise, that just you had strings on there, you had just all
a lot of epic stuff, yeah.
Shitloads of stuff, but
we just thought it was it might be. You never know what's coming up in the future, but we thought it might be the last chance we have
to do this
with a kind of open checkbook from the record company. So we thought, we're just going to not look this gift horse in the mouth. We are going to go for it, and no hesitation. And we certainly, we did, not just in terms of spending money, but in terms of ambition of arrangement as well. So we got the best session players in, for instance, Simon Phillips, who's one of the world's great drummers.
Yes,
doing Lady Ice and Mr. Hex, which is
which I love those two. I told you I love those two tracks.
It's a work of a percussive genius that he came up with.
Well, and for folks who don't know Simon Phillips, until 2014. When Jeff Porcaro died in Toto, he was the drummer for that.
That's right.
Did shitloads of sessions for other people. That's also well known for playing on the Judas Priest album Sin After Sin when he was like 14 or 15.
Yeah, he was only, I think, 19 when he played for us.
For you, yeah, yep. And,
I mean, the guy was just unbelievable. He turned up in the studio with 3 kick drums, I think about 10 toms. God knows how many cymbals and a gong, and 2 hi-hats. I'm going, what the fuck is this? We don't want all this. We just need solid kind of funk drumming.
Right.
And he said, just let me try a few things, And we're going, oh, okay. I understand. This isn't like the normal, we'll just play some stupid fill leading into
4 on the floor shit, yeah, and or whittly shit.
Was just had groove, had complexity, and he was a virtuoso drummer, basically.
But he could play in any style. I mean, how do you go from Judas Priest to Heaven 17? You know what I mean?
Well,
I mean, he had that kind of skill set to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I played with a lot of different famous drummers, and
yeah,
he's the best one, I think.
Mel
Gaynor, who I used came from that whole Brit funk scene.
Sure.
When I was working with like Beggar and Co. and all that lot on the first B.E.F album.
Yeah.
Mel Gaynor played for us on some of the first B.E.F album, and then he got headhunted by Simple Minds. So he's playing, he's that rock solid thing, He's the opposite. He's like, just give me the job to do. I will hit these drums as hard as humanly possible and keep the fills super accurate and just groove, right? He was the opposite of Simon's like the fucking Mozart of drums,
Yeah. Him and Vinnie Colaiuta. Did you ever work with Vinnie Colaiuta?
No.
You familiar with Vinnie Colaiuta? Oh my God.
But you know Frank Zappa and the Black Page. You know about the Black Page,
yeah,
right? Which was the test piece, the manuscript written test piece for any drummer who wanted to join his band.
Yep.
And it's called a black page because there were so many dots on it.
And then notes on the page.
And I bet Simon could have knocked that out of the park. It's like multiple. It's got every paradiddle on earth and multiple time signatures and changes and tacits and oh my God. And anyway, so yeah, I'm a big fan, as you can tell, of drummers, drumming, and rhythm sections in general.
Oh,
nothing, very little is more thrilling than when a rhythm section, a bass player, and a fantastic drummer are locked in sync. I just think it's thrilling.
You can't argue. Listen, Clive Stubblefield and
all that.
I mean, you got
all
the bass,
above.
and your favorite there, Bootsy Collins, baby.
Yeah, my name's Bootsy, baby.
Hey, Martyn, would you
I
like to
work
buy
with
it?
him.
I know you have. I know
That's-
you've told this story once or twice, but your
I know
Bootsy
it's
story
funny.
is
It's a funny
fucking
story. First thing
hilarious.
he said, "Hey, Martyn, would you like to buy a hat?" And he had a big holdall full of merch.
Just
First thing he did was try and sell me a handmade hat, and I thought, wow, this is coming from a different place,
he was a long way.
I bought a couple, and I don't know where they've gone now. I wish I still got them. It was like, when was this? This was like mid-80s. Trucker hats in the UK were not fashionable.
No,
the ones that stick right up like that.
Yep.
But he'd done it. He'd done it like hand stenciled, spray painted gold paint, really terrible gold on a black hat, on a black trucker hat. Oh my! With Bootsy and a big star, and it was so cool. Yeah.
And what specific track did you work? I mean, you use his vocals or?
Yeah, it was on a track that I think, I'm not even sure it got released in the end, by a band called Urban Cookie Collective. Do you know? I mean, I don't know if it was ever a hit in America, but in Britain there was a #1 hit. It was called "I Got the Key, I Got the Secret, I Got the Secret."
No, I actually don't. I mean, I knew him from outside of Parliament Funk doing Grooves in the Heart with Delight.
Anyway, so I did another track with them after they'd had this big hit, and it never got released. And so but they didn't use him for bass. They got him in. They got him in because they liked his voice, and so we just did a load of.
I mean, the man can sing his tits off. I mean, he's got an amazing.
No, but they liked his speaking voice. So
sure.
We sampled loads of his. My name's Bootsy, baby, and millions of things.
Oh my God!
Anyway.
So I'm going to turn the conversation away from music for a hot second. Well, it'll involve the arts because you are well known for your love of the city of Venice, which we did touch briefly about you saying Dido and Aeneas. And one of my first questions to you, starting this all off, was going to be, but did you find a new place in Venice?
No. Well, interestingly,
are you still looking?
No. Well, since I talked to you in the abortive previous attempt at this interview, my wife unfortunately has decided that she doesn't want to live in Venice. So something about climate change she's worried about,
Okay.
rising sea levels and blah blah blah, and I couldn't dissuade her. So anyway, but the current idea is, I said, look, I still want to buy somewhere outside the UK. So we are currently we are currently looking at Lisbon.
Doesn't your daughter go to school in Spain?
She used to.
Okay.
Until she did an MA in Spain, and she lived there for 2 years.
Oh, cheers!
She's living with us now. So.
Oh, cheers! She graduated and all that. Well, congrats to her. Wonderful. I must be very proud. Well, Spain is not a bad runner-up. I mean,
well, Lisbon's in Portugal, but
I'm sorry, Portugal. I mean,
Portugal's great, and it's got a very successful economy. It's a left-wing government. It's got the youngest demographic of pretty much any country in Europe.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of energy, a lot of culture. Food's great. It's by the sea.
The Vino Verde is really good.
Yeah, and all that. And their
wine does not suck. Their wine does not suck.
Does not suck, no. And Porto is just 2.5 hours. Yeah. So anyway, it ticks a lot of boxes for me. It's also a hilly city, which reminds me of my hometown of Sheffield.
Cool. Oh, interesting. Now, compared to
Lisbon, Rome, and Sheffield are all built on 7 hills. Check it out.
Okay, folks. The doctor is in. Professor Ware is in.
I think maybe Stuttgart as well, actually. Now I was thinking about it.
God damn. When you had Larry Fast on your podcast early on, Larry Fast, who played for Peter Gabriel, tons of other people, but Peter Gabriel, for me, people my age would know him on playing Peter Gabriel's early stuff. Actually, I believe he played on Foreigner, a Foreigner album.
I don't mind Foreigner. I like Foreigner.
I love. Are you kidding me? Lou Gramm is what Foreigner 4 was the first album I bought with my own money. I'll have you know. Right. And I fell in love with the pillowy synth text that him and Tom Dolby would put. Tom Dolby's on that album, and Sheffield's own Def Leppard. He plays keyboards on Pyromania. Actually.
Right. Is that right?
Yes, right. Yes, it is. Yeah, on the song Rock of Ages, you hear that synth bass sound. That's Tom Dolby playing that.
Is that right? That
is right. Well, I don't want to keep you from keeping you here, but folks, you got to check his stuff out. What's in the other than your podcast? What's in the horizon for you? Heaven 17? Yeah.
Oh my God! Well, we're doing another tour in the autumn in the UK. We're doing a lot of festival dates in the summer. We're doing a really nice one in I think it's just outside Dublin with Mark Armand and
Soft Cell. Ooh.
And OMD.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that's a good one. And then I'm doing a very, very special and unique 3-dimensional sound gig in Sheffield in May, on the day of the King's coronation, actually, as it turns out.
Oh, wow. What day is that? I'm sorry?
Sorry?
What date is the King's coronation? I don't know.
May the 6th, I think.
Because I know your birthday, if memory serves, is the 19th. I'm May 22nd, by the way.
So all right, there you go.
Cheers.
That's my wedding anniversary.
May 22nd?
Yeah.
Oh, cheers! Wonderful. Well, I'll remember that.
Absolutely. So, this 3D sound gig, it's going to be in this venue in part of Sheffield University called the Octagon. It's about 1,000 capacity, and it's going to be in the round with a stage in the centre, and it's got myself and playing some compositions in 3 dimensions with string players. Some early B.E.F compositions we're going to
Decline of the West.
Yes.
Folks, I'm going to have a ton of links below this when this is on YouTube, Martyn. I will make sure that and it's Martyn with a Y, like that's Liza with a Z. So I will have that on there because
please do.
When you had Moby,
only one show. So,
oh wow!
If anybody's obviously in America, I don't know, people will make the effort, but certainly if anybody's listening in the UK or Europe, it'd be worth coming to, because not only am I doing all that stuff and unique stuff we've never done before in 3 dimensions, and performances that we've only previously done in other big concert halls. There's also the ex-world snooker champion Steve Davis.
You've had on the show.
On the show, and he and his band, the Utopia Strong, which are kind of electronic, analog electronic kind of band.
Because he's actually done. This is his next phase of his career. He does it quite a bit. Yeah.
And he DJs as well, and also another Electronically Yours alumni. Richard Norris from The Grid is going to be doing a set as well.
Good, because I know you had you'd proposed to these people. Hey, would you? I have a great idea for this. So that's actually coming to fruition.
That's actually happening. Yeah.
Good.
Excellent. They're all performing, and I am so thrilled.
And you see them in person.
Unique. And if you happen to be in Europe or UK, worth doing.
Is Heaven 17 going to come? Ever going to come back to the States, do you think?
We want to. I mean, our backing singers are currently lobbying for us to do it. They're putting together a new PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, well, let me tell you. Who's it? Rachel? Who's the one that does Temptation? Rachel?
Oh, no, Kelly.
Kelly. Girlfriend can sing.
Oh, she can sing. I often say to her, and she knows, I often say to her, look, I would stack you against. I'd stack you up against anyone. I mean, she would say, "Oh no, I'm not Beyonce. I can't do all that coloratura and whistle singing and all." I said, "Look, it's about feel as well. She's got an amazing range. She can belt it out, but she can also sing delicate stuff. She sang a track on the last B.E.F album I did, Dark. So where she did a fantastic rare song by it was a B-side, I think, by one of my favorite songs by originally by Tina Marie.
Sure.
Called,
Lady T.
Called Co-Pilot to Pilot, which was, and it's not a well-known song.
Yeah, I don't know it.
But it's like it's like country soul. And it just occurred to me that Kelly's voice sounds a little bit like that, and actually a little bit like
down.
Randy Crawford as well in there. So anyway, Kelly, check her out.
Well, please give
Kelly
her
Mark.
my, from one singer to another, please give her my, listen,
she
knows who the hell I am, but she's, both singers are really fantastic.
Oh, no, they're brilliant.
And the touring keyboardist that you have for Heaven 17 that comes with
Flo.
you. Fabulous.
Flo Sabiva, yeah, she's quite awesome as well.
So before we go, this is a Prince podcast, and you guys have done a cover of Prince's Sign of the Times. When I'm going to tell you what, I always give side eye when everybody does a Prince cover. I mean, it better be good. And I'm going to tell you, I love your cover of Sign of the Times.
I think it's pretty good. I mean, it's different to the original, but
that's the point. It has to be different. It can't.
We're not trying to slavishly imitate it, but
no.
I think the thing is, Glenn's got such a sense of presence with his voice that he can carry most things.
Oh,
I tell you what's good as well. I know it's not Prince, but we did a cover version of Rocket Man.
It's not on that EP, because there's an EP where you do With or Without You two, and
no, that's not that. This was done about 7 years ago, and it's really good.
I'll have to go.
I really like it. I think, to be honest, I kind of prefer it to the original. Anyway, have a listen to this, yeah.
And I want to mention one more deep cut, and I'll have a link to it below on this YouTube. That is the song from Bigger Than America, Another Big Idea, another great idea.
Oh yeah, very interesting.
Okay, and because you're a Beach Boys fan, it immediately brought to my mind, wow, this is like kind of a Beach Boysy kind of.
Oh, thanks.
It was very strikingly those harmonies. I'm like, I could have actually heard David Bowie cover that song. I don't know why I would have thought of that. I thought Bowie could have done that easily around that period of time he was doing stuff with Eno.
I mean, in terms just the final word, really, in terms of underrated and underexposed albums that we've ever done, I think Bigger Than America, I think is exceptionally good. Actually,
and of course, I got to mention from, I know your time here. I got to mention that, and That's No Lie from How Men Are. Just simply with Aphrodisiac, and those who remember Karen Wheeler.
When we do that live, it just stuns the room.
Oh, well, and Karen Wheeler, who is in that vocal group Aphrodisiac, they recorded for Every Day I Write the Book for Elvis Costello. Yeah. They Karen Wheeler went on to sing Back to Life for Soul to Soul.
That's right.
And became the big diva that she is from that whole time period. But since this is a Prince podcast, and I don't want if I have another minute or two.
All right.
What your favorite Prince album? Your favorite Prince? And I know you have some Prince stories because you work with Jill Jones.
I did, yeah. My favorite Prince album is Parade.
Oh, cool.
And my favorite tune off that album is Mountain. I just think it's a piece of. It's just a piece of epic beauty. I love the kind of, to me, it sums up Prince at his peak. The kind of the groove, which is very kind of angular and machine drum, but then you got these amazing rising bit actually is pretty much nicked off Michael Jackson, to be honest. That kind of thing, whether you got the rising tone going through the chords and all that. But also kind of funky, kind of almost like clavinetty thing going on in the background. The backing vocals, the lyrical content, everything about it is a thing of beauty. But I could pick 20 Prince songs that I love almost as much as
but
that.
Mountains for us dieharders. Mountains is one of those that, like, it was a single, but it's just and it did okay, but it is one of those that it's like it really we consider underrated. I mean,
whenever I hear it, it always thrills me. I think that's an indication.
And the horn section, I'm working on. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm working on this guy right here who plays on it, Eric Leeds. I've been talking to him back and forth, and he plays the saxophone on that. So actually, he's the brother of Prince's former tour manager and James Brown's tour manager, Alan Leeds.
Is that right?
Correct.
Well, the thing is, brass, right, is a very important thing for us. So we work with the Phoenix horns, who are up there with the very
Earth, Wind and Fire's famous Phoenix horns.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a joy working with them. But brass in general is a big passion of mine. Brass and bass. You know, I think if you get those two things right in an arrangement, you're pretty much winning, aren't you?
Listen to Motown.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, James Jamerson when he's on the bass, and you got the horns playing their thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's always the jazz musicians that do it. Well, Martyn, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for all your contributions. And folks, again, there'll be links below to check out his Electronically Yours podcast. I'll have a link for your book.
Great.
The paperback edition comes out in mid-July this year. So check that out. Hard copy still available. You can get it wherever you buy your books. The audiobook is definitely worth
I think the audiobook is probably the most fun.
Jesus Christ, you spent a lot of time recording that.
I never want to do it ever again. It took me 3 solid 8-hour days with about 500 edits, stopping and starting. I'm not a natural narrator, but
I disagree. You may you don't come off. Let me put it this way: you don't come off in your audiobook like you're not natural at it, because you've got quite a nice
modulation.
Modulate. That's the word I'm looking for.
I think the thing is, I listen to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts,
and that helps.
And I think it's essential. In fact, I go so far as to say, if whoever's reading it, even if it's the author, doesn't have a well modulated voice, I just can't commit to 12 hours of listening.
No question. I always like to hear from the author's voice.
Oh yeah, definitely, especially autobiographies.
Yes, absolutely. Rob Halford's Crucible also has a wonderful sense of British culture when he describes the yam yam, how the folks over in the Brummies in Birmingham speak there's certain dialect. The yam yam yow, and all that kind of stuff. So at any rate,
gotta give myself a keep a tie. Cup of tea. There's a joke about that.
Cup of tea. You're right. Well, I have a good friend from Didsbury in Manchester, so she gives me the whole. This is how people in Cannock talk, and this is how people in. She could give you a whole, and she's a singer as well. Well, anyway, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this.
It's been great. I've really enjoyed it, mate.
As have I. And I'll keep in touch, and I'll make sure folks go to listen to his wonderful podcast.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming on, folks.
And let me know when it's out. When are you planning to put it out? Do you think?
As soon as I'm able to, I'll probably put it out either later tonight.
Oh, really? That soon? Okay.
I like to, I don't do these that often as you do. I'm not as prolific. So I do it on my spare time. Like today's my day off, so I do it in my spare time. But I will try to put it out as quickly as I can, and I'll give you a link to it if you don't mind sharing it.
Oh, I will share the shit out of it. Yeah.
Thank you. That means a lot because I've really enjoyed the conversation with you.
Yeah,
you're just wonderful.
Well, stay in touch as well, right?
Absolutely. Cheers. Thank you so much.
All right, man.